Welcome back. Some observers have expressed unease with what they call a secretly negotiated South Africa's climate finance deal. They are referring to that just over 10 billion rand just energy transition partnership launched in Egypt at COP27. It's a deal between South African government and the governments of the United Kingdom, the United States of America, France, Germany, and the European Union. Joining us now to explain their concerns about the agreement and its impact on local development is Professor Gilad Isaacs, who is with the Institute for Economic Justice. Prof, thank you for making time this afternoon. Let's start with the concern you have as an organization around consultations. Has there been enough engagements with civil society, organized labor, and other stakeholders in the last couple of months to discuss our approach to this just energy transition?
Thanks very much, Clement. The short answer is no. And this is one of our two streams of concerns, the issue of consultation and then the issue of the actual substance of this agreement or this investment plan. On the issue of consultation, which you ask about, this was announced like this time last year. For about the last 9 months, there's been intensive work going on across the departmental team in government, which is also involves various private sector and development institutions. And essentially, there's been one or two meetings throughout that with each of labor, civil society, and actually a youth constituency. And we've been in some of those. And essentially, every meaningful question which you ask, the answer is, well, it is market sensitive, it is still being negotiated. And so we haven't managed to, until it was released and elements leaked the week prior, actually have any real understanding of the substance of this investment plan. Yeah,
and maybe let's zoom into the substance of these pledges, right? Because the pledges that we're receiving from the international partner group, and I think now we're looking at the 10 billion. Before it was the $8.5 billion last year in a form of loans and grants. Are you concerned about just the grants and the loans and how much of it are actually not loans? Because my understanding is that only about 4% or so of this amount is in grants, and with the rest being loans and guarantees. Is that something that's bothering you as an organization, and why?
Absolutely. So what South Africa's put forward is a financing investment plan, which essentially says if this financing comes through, this is the approach which we will adopt in spending it. And of the financing which is on the table, you note correctly that only a very small amount is in grants, which essentially is in donated funds to South Africa. Now, in the context of climate finance, where developed countries have historically been the ones who have emitted more and benefited more, there's a imperative upon them to transfer funds to the developing world to assist with this. But it goes deeper than that, and it's also about the conditions and approach adopted within those loans and the implications which those have.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree that the global north countries could do more, especially given their historic culpability for climate change. Surely they can pour in more money into decarbonization. Do you get a sense that these countries are actually honoring these pledges? Because they failed to do so after COP26, I think in Glasgow, and COP21 in Paris. And that has created this lack of trust between developing and developed countries. I think this is something President Cyril Ramaphosa even raised this week.
So there's no doubt that there's been a lack of follow-through and a way of including some of these grants in development assistance they would offer anyway. On the other hand, there is a convergence between the developed and developing world in the approach which is being adopted. So if you look at the substance of the investment plan which South Africa is advancing, they're essentially proposing the use of these funds to try and what is called de-risk private sector investment. So the whole idea is to use these funds to encourage further investment by the private sector. And that approach is locking us into a particular energy generation path. So the independent power producers in South Africa stand at the heart of this deal. And those IPPs receive agreements from Eskom that they will buy a certain amount of energy at a certain rate, even as renewable energy becomes cheaper.
Yeah.
And so we are benefiting from that. And what we're seeing is that the state guarantees the costs and profits and interest payments of those private providers. And that's going to limit energy access. At the same time, those IPPs use those guaranteed streams of income to actually speculate in financial markets and earn extra income. And then lastly, Clement, is also what's not included here, right? And what's not included is any meaningful financing for the other elements of the renewable value chain. So the employment and development opportunities aren't necessarily in erecting wind turbines or in solar arrays. They're in the manufacturing of those component parts. And so our development and employment opportunities are in the localization of that manufacturing. And from what we can tell, only about 0.4% of the financing is earmarked for that form of investment. And it's really in that area that we need far more investment to benefit from this.
Yeah, and I think you'll agree, Prof, that what we also need more of is conversations around social security support for affected families and workers, such as those in the country's coal belt in Mpumalanga. Even the International Labour Organization called for social security and employment guarantees to those affected workers, and not just them, but the youth, communities that are affected by this energy transition. Do the monies that are being committed take that into account? And are there enough conversations, even at COP27, about that element?
That's an extremely astute insight there. And the answer is no. There is no money in the investment plan for social security. And as you say, there is tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of workers in coal and associated industries who are likely to lose employment as one phases out coal-fired power. And we owe it to those workers to, on the one hand, ensure that there is a reskilling, that there's new employment opportunities which can come from the manufacturing sector, or to ensure that there is a fund to support these workers as they lose employment within coal.
Yeah. Professor Gilad Isaacs from the Institute for Economic Justice, thank you for making time.